Hello there. Hi. I was going to continue working through reading and commenting on the New Yorker article by Rachel Aviv, but I think I'll hold off on that for now. It's just whether it's necessary or not, because this last week has been incredible with the amount of articles in many aspects of the mainstream media, which are obviously very positive in respect of questioning whether this is a terrible miscarriage of justice in relation to Lucy Letby, and obviously it is. And there's more coming next week. There's an article in Private Eye coming. There's another Guardian article coming next week. I've read articles in French newspapers already. Well, I haven't read them in French, but I'm aware of them and was told about them by a Facebook friend, Catherine. Thank you for that. So there's all sorts of things happening, and it's, whatever euphemism you want to use, I think the tipping point has been reached, and the tide has turned, or however you want to put it. And I don't want to make unnecessary videos about it, going over and over the same information. And not that there isn't new information coming out, and there will be, and it will be further deconstructed, but I think it's going to be done on a much wider scale now through these articles, and more people are sort of joining the fray, as it were, and saying there's something desperately wrong here. I think they feel safe to do that in a sense, or maybe they just weren't aware. Maybe they just weren't aware of the real fundamental problems with the whole of the prosecution's case, and how it's falling apart in front of our eyes now in the public arena, in the public square, which is absolutely brilliant to see and read. Lucy Letby is going to be freed. How they do that, to what degree the establishment are going to dig their heels in and try to, do the three monkeys thing of not hearing, seeing, speaking, that can only last so long, because the clamour will grow and grow, and it's growing exponentially. It's right at the point where you've got all these ex-government ministers. It doesn't put to the side for a minute what I think about them per se, but nonetheless, it's all helpful towards. I don't think there should be even a retrial. Clearly the verdict should be quashed. It just should be quashed. Lucy should go home to her family and friends, and then obviously what falls out from that is exposing the real story of what's happened, and that everybody's responsible for that miscarriage of justice needs to be held fully accountable, and then the hospital and certain doctors and the NHS in relation to Chester Hospital has to be held responsible for what happened there during those years. In other words, the real accountability for those increase in those deaths over 2015, 2016. I had this story, and I suppose it was a news story initially, and I began listening to the reporting of the trial last year, as many other people did, and I had no idea I'd end up doing like over 100 videos about it. No idea at all. I was just doing little things on this channel about growing some plants or reading some poems out, so I had no intention of that. But I've thought about it lately, and I just instinctively and intuitively felt there's something profoundly wrong here. So since back from last August, and then it like I think with many people who felt right from the beginning very aggrieved and very concerned and doubtful about what was going on and horrified by it. It chose us in the sense that we just knew, we felt it was this isn't right. And then as things unfolded and more people began to research into different elements of it, people with medical, scientific, statistical backgrounds, and people just analysing it from a sort of a common sense and logical point of view, and all those, the collective of all those people coming together week after week, month after month. And then we were hoping for the appeal, and then they turned that down because it's a corrupted process where they've got these stupid parameters, ridiculous parameters about on what basis they can give an appeal, so they can actually say, oh yeah, we did the process right, we can see that the evidence is compelling, but our rules tell us that we can't allow the appeal. So there's something desperately wrong, and I keep saying the word corrupt. I mean it. Corrupt with that whole system that would allow miscarriages of justice to perpetuate and push things on to the CCRC, who in turn are not fit for purpose either. They'll let people languish in prison, innocent people languish in prison for years, maybe decades, till they get round to doing something. It's an abysmal and an abhorrent situation. And so many people involved in that so-called criminal justice system seem to be without conscience. They're happy enough to take their very high wages and the status that goes with it, but they're not interested in doing anything about I think, I'd say the faults in the system. They're not, it's not that it's full of faults. It's deliberate. It's designed. It's by design. And it's because of attitudes and the notion to self-protect, to protect their colleagues in the so-called profession that they're in, and to keep it the way it is at the expense of other people's lives and freedom. And they'll continue doing it as long as we allow it. As long as we allow it, they'll continue doing it and making all these piss-weak excuses for it, just saying, oh, we followed the guidelines. Well, the guidelines are wrong then, aren't they? The parameters are wrong. The parameters are wrong for what you should consider in terms of a request for appeal. There should be automatic right to appeal. Automatic right to appeal. Anyway, I don't want to make unnecessary videos about this case. I'm going to carry on observing and reading everything I can that as things develop, and it's developing apace. It's moving very quickly now. There's no point in me going through all the minutiae for any further of the New York case. It kind of covers all the areas that I've been talking about in videos based on other people's work primarily, but some of my own inferences and perceptions over the last 10 months, best part of a year, since last August. And but things are really, really looking up. I really hope that the message is getting through to Lucy Letby. I believe it is. Somebody has said that Lucy is aware that there's a lot of supporters for her out here, and that things are growing, that clearly her family, her parents and other family and all her good friends that have stuck by her will be aware of what's happened this last week. It's been an incredible week. Well, it's been credible. In the old sense of the word, it's been credible, it's been believable, i.e. that people are finally waking up or deciding in that mainstream media world to say, look, this can't be allowed to continue. It's an absolute. I've always thought, or I've come to think actually, because there's a process that was involved here. I've always thought, though, I came to think this is a workplace bullying situation gone to the absolute nth degree, to the most disgustingly evil degree. That's what it started off as. I was putting a tweet yesterday on Twitter in that Lucy Letby in July 2016 is sent to this thing that Jayaram, mockingly as he would do, as a narcissist would do, calls the island of lost souls, where he says, oh, that's where managers or nurses or other people go when they're deemed not to be competent, and they're put in a safe place where they can't bother anyone else, as it were. I just made the point yesterday on Twitter, well, between July 2016, for the whole rest of that year and a bit into 2017. What was being done in the hospital as part of the NHS Trust to look into the alleged incompetency? Because that's what it was at that time. It wasn't, nobody was talking to the management about a murderer. They were whispering it. Jayaram was whispering it in lunch queues. So we're told. He denies that. There was a whisper campaign about his deliberate harm, but it wasn't formally. It was the idea that Lucy Letby was taken off nursing duties because she wasn't safe in terms of her practice. But during that whole year, which is completely untrue, and nothing has ever been shown about that. Never. She wasn't. She was totally confident, very highly skilled, highly conscientious person, an excellent nurse. As I've said before, that's why they went for her. They went for somebody that was really good and highly conscientious. That's what bullies do. That's what bullies often do. They go for someone that's exceptionally good. Because they kind of Lucy Letby showed them up in that way, if you see what I mean. She showed them up by her attitude and her purity, the purity of why she was doing that job, and how much she took it to heart, and how much she cared for those children, how much it hurt her personally when things went wrong. Not things that she did wrong, but then when babies declined and when they died because of a dysfunctional unit. But going back to the point I was making, what was being done in the hospital during that time while Lucy's on this so-called island of lost souls? Nothing to... We know that. How do we know that? Because when Lucy brings the grievance, she's accepted right back in the following spring. There was no investigation into her competence. It was a means by which these bullies, these psychopathic bullies, Jayaram, Breary, with Gibbs and Dr. B and Co, and whomsoever else that we won't know, that were part of that whispering and that campaign of a destruction of a person, there was this destruction of a person's reputation out of malice and out of bullying, out of that alone, as scapegoating, out of nastiness, out of malice. If they were serious about being concerned about her alleged lack of competency, why would they not have reported her to the Nursing and Midwifery Council so that her registration could be taken away? Did none of that. Did no investigations into competency. Nothing. And this is the crucial thing, never would have done, and never would have gone to the police, ever. Lucy, as far as Jayaram and Breary and the rest of the bastards were concerned, could stay on the island of lost souls ad infinitum, could go off sick, could leave for another unit, for another trust somewhere else in the country. Nothing would have happened. And just to repeat, I keep saying that there's nothing wrong with Lucy Letby's competency, and there never was. And that's why they didn't investigate it, because there's nothing to investigate. And that's why when Jayaram and Breary keep coming to the managers and the nurse managers and Alison Kelly and Arian Powell and so forth, and they keep saying, well, they keep being asked for evidence, and they're saying, well, we haven't got any evidence, we just feel uncomfortable. We feel uncomfortable because we're psychopathic, sociopathic, narcissistic bullies, and we've got a really decent person who's making us feel bad and making reports on the dating system about us, etc. And we want somebody to blame for the unit-wide, trust-wide failures that are impacting the babies on this unit, and this unit is operating at a level that it shouldn't be operating at. And so that's what they did. It's a bullying, workplace bullying, taken to the nth degree. So when Lucy Letby brings the grievance and they're forced to apologise for their bullying, and that's a matter of record that they were, and they did, and they were threatened with the GMC, these 4 bastard consultants, they had to take it one stage further. They had to up the ante. They bring the police in, and they set the dogs. They set the dogs of the police on Lucy. They set one of the worst, most vicious one. And then is Evans, really. He's not obviously not in the police, but he becomes the police's attack dog, essentially. And so that's what they do. They throw her to carry on with that analogy, throw her to the wolves, to the dogs of the police. Who care not, who care naught, who care nothing, who care nada for truth or justice. None of them. Don't care about it. As long as they can win. As long as they can win, they just saw it. Oh, we're going to make our names for this case. We can make a murderer here. You might say, well, how could they have thought that? How could they really be that bad? Well, it's all about what they didn't do. It's all about what they didn't do. Did they, we've got Evans in that ridiculous, obscene video nasty, the hummingbird video, saying, he gives it away because he's stupid. He's a very, very stupid man. He says, we've got to give the impression, they'll get you later on in court if you haven't appeared to go for any, we've got to show them that we weren't looking just for one person. We were considering everyone and everything. And yet there's zero evidence that they considered anyone else or anything else. There's zero evidence of any investigatory lines of considering anything else or anyone else. It was utterly focused on Lucy Letby from the beginning, and with, I maintain, absolute collusion between these four bastard consultants, particularly Jayaram and Breary, the police and Evans. Collusion that I'm saying should be punishable by law as in terms of corruption and what's the phrase? I'm forgetting words now. Undermining the course of justice, sort of. I can't remember the exact phrase off the top of my head. Distorting, whatever it is. I know what it is, but I've forgotten it. Perverting the course of justice. That's what they've done through the collusion. They're not telling us about the collusion. I think it's a very safe inference, very, very safe and strong inference that they colluded in a way that perverted the course of justice. Because you've got to simply ask yourself, how did this utter fraud Evans choose the right cases out of the 32 and avoid choosing the wrong ones? The wrong ones being any ones where Lucy was not on duty. It's going to be taken apart ad infinitum to the tiniest degree now on medical levels, on scientific levels, every aspect of the so-called smoking gun insulin cases. Why did they need a smoking gun? Why did they need a smoking gun? What does it tell you about all the so-called air embolism cases, the so-called deliberate overfeeding or trauma cases that Lucy Letby was purported to have committed and was convicted for outrageously? What does it tell you about them? It says without these other manufactured cases of the completely weak and utterly unreliable so-called smoking gun cases, all the rest is nothing, and all of them are nothing. I've done this in several videos to say that you've got these two elements supporting each other that are individually unbringable, unconvictable, unchargeable individually, and never would have been. And these so-called insulin cases are going to be taken apart to such a degree now as well that they'll be blown out of the water, as they have been already. Actually, they have been over these last many months from the work of many people, Dr. McLachlan. We need to talk about Lucy Letby podcast with Dr. McConville and Peter Alston, Science on Trial, Dr. Gill. Richard Gill, and many others, and many others, just people who aren't necessarily medically trained, but there's a lot of people who are nurses or who were nurses or on Twitter, many of them with a healthcare background or currently working there in a healthcare setting, that are just taking this nonsense apart and have been for many months now. And the mainstream media have caught up, and it's coalesced. And obviously there's been other people concerned en route that we were not aware of, who have gone to the lengths of reporting so-called Dr. Evans to the GMC, multiple reports to the GMC, and they're not pissing about anymore. So yeah, I'll hold off carrying on. It might just not be necessary to do it, carry on going through the New Yorker article, because you can all read it yourselves, and you can see it all, and see all these other articles coming out. As I said, several more next week. Certainly another Guardian one, and Private Eye one. I think that's middle of next week. I think the Guardian one's on Monday, I believe. Anyway, there's so much more to come, and there's a real head of steam now. I keep using different phrases, but you know what I mean. It's going to happen now. It won't be allowed to stand. Some people said, oh, they'll die away and it will just be like other miscarriage of justice. No, this is unique, and really hope it has this knock-on effect on three other nurses, at least three other nurse cases which are very concerning. Colin Norris, Ben Geen, and just from memory now, Victorina Chua, I think it is Victorina Chua. And these poor people have been in prison for many years, and they are very, very likely to be miscarriages of justice as well. Or perhaps we can just say they probably are, in all likelihood. I'm only caveating it because I've not looked into them deeply. I did look at some videos and reports and articles about Ben Geen, and that seems very much like very, very much like a miscarriage of justice as well. And he's been in prison for the best part of 20 years, so it's disgusting, isn't it? So perhaps that's part of what the establishment are aware of, that this overturning of the Lucy Letby miscarriage of justice will lead on necessarily, as it should and as it must, to a complete review of these or the other cases. And the fallout from this is going to be huge, as it should be. And it's going to... they've got to start again with the CCRC. They're rubbish. They're not fit for purpose. Got to have something else. Got to have something effective, something that isn't underfunded or staffed by low energy, low vibrational, half-assed idiots who just sit on stuff for years, sit on evidence that should be being seen by the Court of Appeal. It's not working, and it's deliberately not working, because the system is in full self-protection mode. But that's what we're up against at this point in time now, is that the system, how it coagulates and how it self-protects, the establishment, shall we say, is in full protection mode. But the cries are going to be too strident, too loud, and the call for the righteous calls for truth and justice is going to be deafening to them, and they'll have to do something as they must. They will do it, and it will be overturned. I just hope it's sooner rather than later. It should be today. Lucy Letby should be immediately freed, as some people have said, and as some people have said, given a safe place to be with her family because of all the focus, And then if there is going to be a retrial, do that. But I don't see the need for a retrial. Just quash the verdicts. Completely unsafe. Case should never have been brought. Charges should never have been brought. And then begin the long process of dealing with all those who are responsible for making this miscarriage of justice happen, and for all those who are responsible for that spike in deaths at the Countess of Chester Hospital during 2015 and 2016, i.e. all the individuals and all the institutions. Thanks very much for listening, and I think we're going in very much the right direction here, and that's good news. Bye.